Alright, assignment 4, self-portrait. The student will create a self-portrait using a digital image and incorporating vector shapes and at least 4 Photoshop filters. Now this assignment is more of an artistic type thing. It's not something you're going to do in your day-to-day Photoshop work. In fact, most of my Photoshop work involves either cleaning up images or cropping images. Since I do a lot of web design, it doesn't involve much artistic Photoshop things, but you know, this is fun. It gets you used to it, lets you know that the filters are there. 8 by 10, 150 DPI. Basically, the main things to focus on is 8 by 10, 150 DPI. Use 4 Photoshop filters and use some vector shapes. So let's get started. So here's an image of myself. You know, sometimes usually if I can tell that it's high res just by looking at the percentage. That's usually my little trick. If this is at 100%, I know it's not going to be high res. But since it says 16%, I'm pretty sure it's high resolution. So, you know, if I was to look at it at 100%, yeah, it's pretty big. Pretty big. Alright, so let's zoom back out. So I'm going to use the crop tool here and make it 8 by 10. I already got 8 inches typed in up at the top here. I got 8 inches, 10 inches, 150 DPI. And, whoops. Let's see here where I'm going to want to crop this. Kind of don't want to do dead center, but maybe like right there. That looks good. Alright, now the directions don't say CMYK. I was playing around earlier and I noticed that in CMYK mode all of the filters weren't available at my disposal, so let's just keep it this time in RGB mode. Alright, so there's a lot of ways to apply a filter. You can do one on the entire image. The directions say use selection tools. When I was messing around earlier, I liked creating separate layers with different filters applied. Now the direction of this assignment is probably just going to end up squarely. You see how these down here, there's no real... Remember on the last one it says a collage is a juxtaposition to create a message. This really doesn't have a message. It doesn't really have a point. It's just sort of playing around, making something that quote unquote looks cool. So let's so I really have no direction here, so whatever I make now is what we're going to make. So what I'm going to do is over here under my layers panel, it has a background layer locked. I'm going to double click that, new layer, and say OK. Now I have a regular layer with my face on it. I'm going to duplicate this layer. There's I think 3 ways that I know of. Let's see, you can right click, duplicate layer, and it'll say you can give it a name. Usually I just hit OK. You can drag this layer to this button down here. This is the new layer button. Create a new layer. So you can drag this to here. It makes a copy. That's the second method. You can have it selected. Click this little menu here. Duplicate layer, which is basically the same as right clicking. And then I think under a 4th way is under layer. Duplicate layer. Sorry, I can't say that. So there's 4 ways to duplicate this layer. The method I usually do is I drag it to here and makes a copy. Alright, so I got 2 copies. You'll see why I have 2 copies in a second. Alright, so this is selected. This whole layer is selected. And I'm going to go up to Filter. And what I like to use is Filter Gallery. Now, when I was in CMYK mode, I'll just switch it just to show you. Don't merge. Okay, whatever. Filter. See, Filter Gallery is not selected anymore. Neither is 3D, video. Some of these are all grayed out. Alright, so we'll stay in RGB mode. Filter gallery. Alright, it picks this. I think that's the last one I was messing with. I'm going to zoom out. So here you are. You can spend all day in these filters. Got artistic filters. You got brush strokes, distort, sketch, stylize, texture. Let's go to distort. Yeah, it looks kind of weird. It looks like stained glass is what they call it. Sketch. Now notice it's got this yellow and this red. It's picking that up from your foreground and background colors over here on the left. Okay. Light. Choose your light direction. See, each one of these filters has some options over here on the right. Detail, smoothness, and the light direction under this filter here. Some of these results can get kind of scary. Alright. And you can even stack filters. You see this little eyeball with these layers? You can stack those. We'll try that out in a minute. But let me just pick this for now. Okay, so I have this scary man on top of this man. And what you can do is, like we did before with the masking, you can also use the erase tool. And I'm just going to kind of erase this part. And there's my face on top of this image. I don't know about that one, but let me try to erase it a little tighter. Oh well. Alright. That looks horrible. Anyway. So there's my face. Alright, so I'm not, if you can move it, but then you kind of mess up the position. So I got this picture on top of this picture. Okay, so that's one Photoshop filter. So let me duplicate this layer again. Alright, now I have this layer selected. I'm going to go to Filter, Filter Gallery. It gives me a preview. This one's always crazy, glowing edges. I'm going to click that one. And this time, I'm going to use that for my shirt. So I'm going to erase everything except for the shirt. Alright. So what I'm left with is this. Looks kind of awkward, but alright. That's two filters. Let me duplicate this one. Let's see if we can make this tree look weird. I like this patchwork one. It's called patchwork, but to me it looks more like pixels. So if you want to convert something to look like it's pixelated, or you know, like pixels, why don't we just pick that anyway for the tree? So there's my tree in the background. I'm going to, is this, actually I'm going to use use a selection. Kind of do like this. Delete the rest of that. that hard edge. Never mind. I don't really like that hard edge there. I'm just gonna go back to the eraser with the soft edge. Even though there's a way to smooth out that edge, but I'll just use the eraser tool for now. All right. So I got a fiery face, pixelated tree, a shirt that looks inverted. What else? This part over here. Duplicate layer. Do one final filter on the background. Keep having to zoom out here. That one, I kind of like that one, but let me change the color so that we have something a little different. Change in foreground color, change in background color. Got green to this light blue. Filter gallery. And it was, I think, was it charcoal? I think it was this one, charcoal. Although that color combination is terrible. Let's see here. Jeez. Never mind. These colors are too close. There. Hot pink. Yeesh. Whatever. There's my self-portrait using 4 Photoshop filters. Instead of selecting parts of the image and changing it on one layer, I think that's what the directions were originally saying. What I'm saying is duplicate every time you make a new layer with a filter, duplicate it. That way, this is more non-destructive. I prefer non-destructive methods. You know, it's easier because I always got one layer here that's untouched, and then I got my little pieces built upon it. Alright. Now the instructions say to use some vector shapes. The word vector is basically, it doesn't involve pixels. It's hard to explain, but when you hear the word vector, just know that you can scale it up to an infinite resolution, so to speak. It doesn't really have a resolution. It's more like math, shapes created with math. And so the edges are always sharp. For instance, over here, if I just draw a rectangle, no matter how far you zoom in, this edge will always be razor sharp. See? It'll always be that sharp, that way. This is pixelated. You can see the squares, but this will never be pixelated. True, once you export this JPEG, it gives it resolution, or however you convert it, but in the software, it has no resolution. And if you save it as like a PDF, this will stay vector. If you save it as a JPEG, all bets are off. But if you save it as a PDF, it'll keep it in its vector format as a vector shape. It says rectangle, but you know it's a vector shape because it has this little square here with the little handles. That lets you know it's a vector, a shape layer, whatever. All right, so you got a square, rounded rectangle. You change, if you want to make a rounded rectangle, you change the radius up here. If you're, this is good if you're creating layouts and you need a button or something. There's a button. We also got ellipse, polygon, line, custom shape tool. For the ellipse, if you want a perfect circle, you hold down the shift key. There's a perfect circle. I'm gonna delete these three. What I really want to show you here is the last one, custom shape tool. You click the custom shape tool, you go over here and you can pick a shape. Now there's also more shapes you can load, but by default you got an arrow, a little speech bubble, light bulb. Let's put the light bulb above my head. Now whenever I'm always hold the shift key when I'm doing this. Alright, so just to reiterate, I went to custom shape tool, picked the light bulb. Now if you see these little points here, those are like the little edges, or the vector points that you can manipulate if you wanted to use like the pen tool. See, there's all the points, the handles. These are called Bezier curves. If I was you, I wouldn't mess with that right now. If you take computer illustration, or if you've ever used Illustrator, you use this all day long. But since we're in Photoshop, you know, you can manipulate the edges of this if you felt the desire to. But, you know, you don't have to do any of that. One thing I do want to show you though is to change the color of this. Just double click on your shape layer, not on the words. If you double click on the words, you rename it. You double click over here, it's going to say apply a layer style. Neither one are right. Double click on the thumbnail, your color picker comes up, and then I can change the color. I'm going to make it like a bright yellow. Alright, so there's my shape layer. I got a bright idea. Let's see what other shapes we have. Speech bubble, check mark. You could even load shapes. Well, I think you got to probably download them. Oh, here's some more. Animals. You can load. I went here to the little gear, went to animals. Do you want to replace what's there? No, I'm just going to say append to the end. There we go. Little paw print, snail. Different talk bubbles, even more light bulbs. I guess that's a popular one. Grime. Alright, well, you can mess around with those different ones. I put a light bulb above my head. I think that's good enough. Anything else? Now the assignment does say to upload the original image separately for comparison, so please take note of that, to upload, you know, two different images, one original and one modified. And also be sure to save yourself an original PSD version, Photoshop document version. So if I was to submit this, I would just say assignment 4, then export. Alright, 100%. Assignment 4. Well, it's not the original. We'll just say assignment 4. And then if I turn all these layers off, I can say, I can export this one as assignment 4, and I can just say original. So now I have two JPEGs, assignment 4 and assignment 4 original. And so that's how to do the assignment. Before we end the video, let me show you some other fun filters you can do. So if this is my face, you don't just have filter gallery, you have other ones down here, like blur. If you want to blur part of the image, these are more for like color correction, but you can blur part of the photo. And I say part, I'm blurring the whole thing, but let's say you just want to blur the background. Now this is a really quick selection here. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Hit OK, deselect. Now the background is blurred. Obviously that's not a good selection. You can see my ear, but you can blur just part of the image. Other filters that I like to use. This one is similar to Snapchat. You can go to distort, pinch, and you can really mess up your face. Mess up your face. There you go. So you got distort, and all of these have options. You know, like pinch, looks like it pinches inward, but you can even force it outward, you know. You want to have a big nose. So that's more filters there under distort. You can spend all day with these things. Twirl. There you go. Look pretty now. Alright. Other filters, noise, pixelate. Oh, we got a pixelate filter all on its own. See, render. I'll be honest, I never really used these that much, so your guess is as good as mine. I do use blur a lot because, you know, you gotta sometimes blur things, but stylize. Yeah, I don't know. Sharpen. Yeah, I've used that one before. Unsharp mask. Let's try this. Render flame. A selected path is required to use this filter. Render flame. I don't know. You can look that one up. But so just so you know, there's more besides just the artistic gallery, filter gallery. There's a few others. Liquify. I can't even. I don't. Wow, this is something else, huh? Detected my face. Oh wow, this is pretty cool. Interesting. That's something. There you go. I look like a crazy person. Alright, well that ends the video. Thank you.